Hello friends, today we are going to take glimpse of the nervous system. We'll learn the constituents and the functioning of nervous system as well as the anatomy and physiology of neuron. We'll see that how is nerve impulse generated and the mechanism of action potential and synaptic firing. Before going ahead, we will take a look at the components of the nervous system. The nervous system is compartmentalized into two major genera. The one which is consisted of two crucial organs of vertebrates, namely brain and spinal cord. Brain and the spinal cord constitute the central nervous system, abbreviated as a CNS, while the part of the nervous system which lie outside of the central nervous system is referred as peripheral nervous system, abbreviated as a PNS. So the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous systems are two major compartments of the nervous system. Now we'll take a look at the cells of nervous system. Just like any other organ system, nervous system is a system consisted of nervous tissue found in many animals. Especially vertebrates have developed a nervous system. Like other organ systems such as digestive system, excretory system, respiratory system, nervous system is also consisted of specialized and differentiated cell having particular function associated with the functioning of the system. Like digestive system has many digestive organs which are consisted of cells differentiated in order to carry out digestion and absorption. Likewise, in nervous system, nervous tissues are there which are constituted by the nervous neurons. The neurons are the functional part of nervous system, because the primary function of nervous system is to control and coordinate the bodily functions. Like the Indian government sends the ambassador to the foreign countries to coordinate the Indians living over there, and likewise the nervous system coordinate all the bodily functions by conducting the impulses, and that impulse is conducted through the neurons, and hence neurons are referred as functional unit of nervous system. Apart from neurons, there are other supporting cells present in the nervous system, especially the glial cell. The glial cell are also referred as supporting cell, and their classification and functioning we will learn about them in a second. But before going for glial cell, we will take a look at the nerve fibers. Nerve fibers can be defined as the continuous chain of neurons throughout the nervous system is called nerve fiber. So the nerve fiber which forms the continuous network of neuron is called nerve fiber. The nerve fiber are of mainly three types. The nerve fiber which send signals toward the central nervous system. The nerve fiber which is present in peripheral nervous system, which detect the signal and send it to the central nervous system, such as brain. To the brain, the signal which is sending the nerve fiber which is sending the signal towards the brain, it is called as the sensory neuron, sensory nerve fiber. There are certain types of nerve network which are present in central nervous system and are associated with the processing of the particular impulses, particular messages, and those nerves are called interneuron. So the interneurons process the signal and are present in the central nervous system. Once the signal is processed, the message which has been prepared in the central nervous system should be transmitted to the target organ, to the target area, and that message, the process message, is carried away from the central nervous system through the specialized fibers called motor neurons. So the motor nerve fiber takes away the signal from the nervous system, from the central nervous system. So these are the three major types of nerve fibers present in nervous system. Sometimes terms afferent nerve fiber and efferent nerve fibers are used for sensory nerve fibers and motor nerve fibers accordingly. So this was about the nerve fiber. The function of neuron as a nervous system is we know that control and coordination of bodily functions, and thus that function is carried out by the process of nerve impulse conduction, and this function is carried out by neurons, and that's why neurons are referred as functional unit of nervous system. Apart from neurons, these supporting cells called glial cells are also there, and their functions are very diverse, and since they do not perform the primary function of nervous system, they are referred as supportive cells. Their function are also very crucial and cannot be denied. We will learn the classification of the glial cell and their function in a second. Before moving to the glial cell, we will take a look at the anatomy of the neuron. So, neuron is not your typical cell. I think you are aware about the cell and its constituents like subcellular organelles and their functions. If you are not aware about that, then I recommend you to watch my video on cell and its constituents. Here the neuron is having cell body. The cell body is carrying all the subcellular organelles which are associated with particular functions. Those subcellular functions are universal in every cell. But apart from the cell body projects some extrusions outside of its body, and that extrusions can be divided into two major groups. The one which are shorter are called dendrites, and these shorter extrusions are tapered at the end and are not covered with any membranous structure, while the extrusion which is longer and highly branched at the end is referred as axon and is covered with myelinated sheath. The end which is highly branched, it is called axon terminal. So this is the cell body which is having subcellular organelles like mitochondria, ribosomes and nucleus. Those all subcellular organelles are present, and these organelles are higher in number compared to the typical cell, because these subcellular organelles are required in order to meet the high energy, chemical and nutrient demand of neuron, and that's why they are present in higher number. So these are the highly branched and tapered end of the dendrites. So these are the dendrites, and the long extrusion which is called axon is there, and axon is covered with myelinated sheath. It is myelinated sheath is indicated by black marker, and this is the axon terminal which is highly branched. So this is the overall structure. It should be noted that these myelinated sheaths are not continuous. They form in between gaps. These gaps are called nodes of Ranvier, and these nodes of Ranvier can transmit the nerve impulse. The axon parts which are covered with myelinated sheath cannot transmit the nerve impulse, and thus the nerve impulse has to jump from one node of Ranvier to the another node of Ranvier, and in turn the speed of nerve impulse will increase, since it has to jump, it has to skip some parts of the axon. So the myelinated sheath axons transmit nerve impulse faster than the unmyelinated axons. So this was about the nerve anatomy. Now we'll take a look at the glial cell. The glial cell are also called as supportive cell of nervous system, since they are not involved in the primary function of nervous system. These supportive cells are classified into four major groups. One is the astrocyte, which are the most abundant nerve cells, most abundant glial cell. The astrocytes are associated with diverse functions, such as they regulate the blood flow in the brain. So the blood flow in the brain is very crucial. If a blood flow is stopped in a vertebrate into the brain, then the organism will die very soon, because the blood is crucial, and the nutrient and the oxygen requirement of the brain will not be fulfilled. Apart from that, it also regulates the communication. It helps in the communication of two adjacent neurons. So in brain, two adjacent neurons are present, and if they are communicating, the astrocytes will help them to communicate. It also maintain the composition of fluid. It also maintains the fluidity of this cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid is present in central nervous system. It works as a medium through which nutrients and substance are provided to the organs like brain and spinal cord. It also works as a cushion to protect the brain and spinal cord from mechanical injuries. So the role of CNS is the role of cerebrospinal fluid is very important, and that is regulated. The constituents of the cerebrospinal fluid is regulated by the astrocyte. Apart from these functions, the one major function of astrocyte is to form the blood-brain barrier. There are many cells in our body which excrete toxin, unwanted and unnecessary substances into the blood streams. That toxic unwanted waste substances can damage the brain, and that's why the astrocyte form a blood-brain barrier to protect the toxin waste substances, to protect the brain from those toxic waste substances. So these are the some major functions of the astrocyte. Apart from astrocyte, microglia are nervous system's version of macrophages. Macrophages are a special type of cells which engulf toxic substances and dead or infected cells. So those materials are engulfed by macrophages to clean out the body. Just like macrophages, microglia protect the nervous system by engulfing the dead cells and toxin materials and work as scavengers. Oligodendrites and Schwann cells are other types of glial cell, which among them the first one is only found in central nervous system, while the latter one is only found in peripheral nervous system. The function of those nervous system is are same. The function is to synthesize myelin, which is a type of white fat which is responsible for the myelinated sheath, and some of the neurons need myelinated sheath to transmit signal faster, and thus this oligodendrites and Schwann cell help for the synthesis of myelinated sheath. Apart from these major four types of glial cell, there are other types of glial cells such as satellite glial cell and ependymal cell glial cell, which are found in many vertebrates. So the satellite glial cell, the exact role of the satellite glial cell in vertebrate is unknown, but since they are found to be sticking with the cell body of neuron, it is said that they are associated with the protection of the neuron, while ependymal cells have a basal membrane through which cilia are extruded, and that cilia move in particular direction, and hence they are responsible for the circulation of cerebrospinal fluid. So it is involved in a circulation of cerebrospinal fluid. Now we will take a look at the peripheral nervous system and their pathways. The peripheral nervous system is one of the most important nervous system which is involved in sending the signal to the target area and receiving the signal from the sensory nerves or from the sensory organs. The peripheral nervous system can be classified into two broad categories. One is the sympathetic peripheral nervous system and another is the parasympathetic peripheral nervous system. The sympathetic peripheral nervous system is usually not activated in a resting condition in vertebrates, but once the body is under stress, the sympathetic nervous system takes over the parasympathetic nervous system and stop the long-term functions and will try to cope up with the stress which is body having, while parasympathetic nervous system is contrary to the sympathetic nervous system, which is activated in a resting phase when vertebrate is body of vertebrate is in resting phase, in a resting mode. It is involved in the functioning of the long-term plans, in long-term functions, and body, when it is activated when body is not under any stress. So generally the parasympathetic nervous system takes over the sympathetic nervous system, and once a vertebrate is facing some kind of chemical or physiological stresses, at that time sympathetic nervous system will take over and the action will be taken according to the situation. Sometime peripheral nervous system is classified into three categories: sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, and the gastrointestinal nervous system. The third one is just like a parasympathetic nervous system, but the first two nervous systems, sympathetic and parasympathetic, are under direct control of the CNS or brain, while gastrointestinal nervous system is not under direct control of brain, and it is autonomous, and that's why this nervous system is considered to be having its own brain. It is associated with the digestion. So that's the reason that sometime in some books author classify the parasympathetic nervous system into these three systems, while sometime it is all the third one, the latter one, is classified under the parasympathetic nervous system only, and the PNS is categorized into only two major categories. So this was about the parasympathetic nervous system. Now we will take a look at the nerve impulse generation. Nerve impulse transmission and generation, we will divide this phenomena into different steps. The first step we will see that in which we will see that how the nerve impulse is generated. In our body, lots of sensory receptors, cells, organs, and body parts are present which can sense or detect the stimulus. So the external or internal stimulus are detected by those sensory cells, receptors, nerves, or organs, and these stimuli will initiate the impulse, and that impulse will be transmitted from one neuron to another neuron till the CNS, where the signal will be processed. And once the signal will be processed, that processed signal will be transmitted to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron will bring that processed signal to the target area, where the target area will take the action according to the processed signal. So this is how it all works. This is the pathway, the general pathway. So now we will take an example. The external stimuli such as change in external environment temperature or the pressure, or the internal stimuli such as internal tissue harm, tissue damage, or mood swinging. These are the some internal stimuli. Those stimuli will trigger the sensory receptors or sensory organs which are associated with them. For example, if the temperature of this room rises, what will happen? The receptor which are present, thermoreceptor which are present in my skin, will detect the change and they will be activated. Once they will sense the change in the temperature, this is called as stimulus. The stimulus will be transmitted to the adjacent neuron. The receptor, thermoreceptors, are directly connected with the dendrites of the neuron. The dendrite of the neuron, this dendrite of the neuron will sense the stimulus, and the stimulus will reach to the cell body. Now once the stimulus reaches to the cell body, there if it is capable to trigger the threshold, then only that will reach to the axon hillock. Axon hillock is the region through which axon is attached to the cell body. Once it triggers the threshold, then only it reaches to the axon hillock, where some voltage gated channels are there. Then only that voltage gated channel will be activated. Otherwise, if it is not capable to induce or to trigger the threshold, then the signal will not be generated, or the impulse will not be generated. So it is kind of 1O impulse generation, 1O kind of activation. Means it can either generate signal or it will not generate signal. It will either generate create the impulse, or it will not create impulse. So if it fails to create impulse, nothing will happen, no process will take place. While if it hits, it triggers the impulse, it triggers the threshold, the impulse will be generated. So there are some chances that this dendrite receives the weak stimulus, and these dendrites also receive the weak stimulus. In that condition, those two stimulus will combine with each other, and they will sum up with each other to form the powerful stimulus, which will trigger the threshold. Once the threshold is triggered, then the voltage gated channel will be activated. So this can be happened, but a single incapable stimulus, weak stimulus, cannot induce the impulse. But the many weak stimuli can simultaneously generate the impulse. So here the impulse reaches to the axon hillock, where the voltage gated channels are present. Now the membrane of axon is very important. The potential of membrane of axon is important to understand before understanding the concept of impulse transmission. Here the mostly in any type of cell, membrane potential is always negative. So the membrane is always polarized, just like the polarization of the typical cell ranges between -70 to -90. In particular case of neuron, the generally membrane of the axon is -70 milliwatt, and this is called resting membrane potential. This potential is remains the same until the stimulus triggers or initiate the impulse. So in resting condition, minus negative around negative 70 potential remains the same. So this is that's why it is called resting membrane potential, because in generally when there is a lack of impulse, this potential will remain the same in the throughout all of the phases. Once the voltage gated channel opens, now there are many types of voltage gated channel: sodium voltage gated channel, potassium voltage gated channel, and the calcium voltage gated channel. As we know that sodium concentration is higher outside of the cell and the potassium concentration is higher inside the cell. This concept is important. So once the change in when the stimulus enters into the axon hillock, there it activates the sodium ion gated channel. Now the sodiums are present higher in concentration outside, so they will leak across the membrane and they will enter into the axon membrane, into the axon. Now the resting potential of membrane is negative. The positive ions are moving inside the membrane, inside the axon. What will happen? It is neutralizing the resting potential. It means it is the membrane is polarized. Membrane is polarized and it is neutralizing, so it is doing depolarization. So the depolarization is occurring. Depolarization will occurring, it will neutralize. Even it will not stop till it reaches to the zero milliwatt, but it will move ahead. It will reaches to around positive 30 milliwatt, where threshold of inactivation of sodium ion gated channel will take place. Here, when stimulus reaches to the cell body and resting potential is disturbed, there the threshold of activation of sodium ion gated channel was triggered. But once it reaches to lots of sodium ions are accumulated inside the cell, now the membrane is completely depolarized, and now it reaches to the up to positive 30 milliwatt. Then the potassium ion gated channel will be closed. Now no sodium ion can enter into the membrane because the gates are closed. Now what will happen? This is the threshold for the positive 30 is the threshold for the deactivation of sodium ion gated channel, but at the same time it is the threshold for the activation of the potassium gated ion channel, potassium voltage gated ion channel. What will happen once it reaches to the 30 milliwatt potential? The sodium voltage ion gated channel will be closed. Simultaneously, potassium ion voltage gated channel will be opened. Now the concentration, as we know, concentration of potassium is higher inside and the low outside. It means sodium will move outside across the membrane from the axon to the outside. Here the membrane is losing positive charge, membrane is losing positive ion, so it is moving towards the polarization, it is moving toward the polarization. So now the depolarization phase has been completed, and now the polarization is starting. So it since lots of potassium ions are moving away from the membrane, it is polarizing the membrane towards the negative charge, towards the negative. And once it will reach to the resting potential, there even though it reaches to the resting potential, the channel will not be closed. The potassium voltage gated channel will not be closed, because resting potential is not its threshold. Its threshold is negative, around negative 90, so it will reach up to the negative 90. So resting, they will overcompensate the resting potential and will further polarize the membrane. So here once it reaches to the resting potential and overcompensate the resting potential, that phase is called hyperpolarization, while the phase which compensate the depolarization is called repolarization. And the repolarization and hyperpolarization both are due to the potassium ion voltage gated channel. So after it reaches to the negative 90, around negative 90, it is the threshold for the inactivation of the potassium ion voltage gated channel. So the potassium voltage gated channel will be closed, and no potassium movement will take place. Here the potassiums will not move across the membrane, and all the ion exchange will stop. Gradually the membrane will establish its own resting potential after few milliseconds. So this complete process from resting potential to the depolarization to repolarization, and from repolarization to again hyperpolarization, and then again resting potential, these all phases are called action potential. As action potential moves further, the intensity of action potential is reduced, and that's why the action potential needs boosters. And these boosters which intensify the action potential, due to the booster, the action potential sustain till the axon terminal. If the boosters are not there, the action potential will not be able to sustain till the axon terminal, and if it is terminated, it is extinguished, it is ended within the axon membrane, within the axon, then the signal will not be carried further from this neuron to the other neuron, so no action will taken place. So it is also important to carry the signal not only within a neuron, but from one neuron to another neuron, and for that the impulse or the action potential must be reached till the axon terminal. From there we will see that how synaptic firing take place. From there only synaptic firing will take place. We will see why it is termed as a synaptic firing. So these are the complete phases of action potential: the resting to depolarization, repolarization, and further repolarization to hyperpolarization, then again gradually resting potential. This was the how action potential is generated, and through boosters this action potential sustain its intensity till it reaches to the axon terminal. Now here what happens in axon terminal, the membrane of axon terminal is abundant with the calcium voltage ion gated channel, calcium ion voltage gated channel, and the concentration of calcium ion voltage gated channel is very high outside of the membrane. Here you will ask a question that once the ion after the action potential is generated, the ions are exchanged across the membrane. It has already disturbed the normal condition of ion, normal position of ion. So how will it be restored? It will be restored by using energy, by using ATP, and this will be restored through sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium pump is another phenomena. I will make separate video on the working of these sodium potassium pump. So the sodium potassium pump is a mechanism through which energy is utilized, and the ions charge which has been disturbed will be restored. So as the action potential move ahead, behind action potential, all the charge which has been disturbed will be reset again by sodium potassium pump by utilizing the energy. Now using the booster, the action potential or the impulse has reached till the axon terminal. The membrane of axon terminal is abundant with the calcium ion voltage gated channel. Now the calcium voltage gated channel, when the action potential reaches to the axon terminal, there action potential or the impulse will activate the sodium gated ion channel, this calcium gated channel. Once the calcium gated channel is opened, the calcium ions which are present outside of the membrane will march into the axon terminal. Now in axon terminal there are certain chemicals present in axon terminal which are covered by specialized vesicles. These vesicles are nothing but a sac, bag like structure, a sac like structure which is formed through the Golgi body. I have already told you that neurons are abundant with these subcellular organelles like mitochondria and Golgi apparatus, and this Golgi apparatus forms these sac around those chemicals. That chemicals are actually special kind of substances which will transmit signal from one neuron to another neuron. These special kind of chemicals are referred as neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters which are packed into the specialized vesicles, into the sac, once the calcium will accumulate inside the axon terminal, it will induce those vesicles to merge into the membrane of axon terminal. It will induce the vesicles to undergo the exocytosis. Exocytosis is a process in which the vesicles attach to the membrane, and the chemicals or substances which are present in membrane are excreted or eluted out to the external environment, to the extracellular fluid. So here the vesicles will merge into the axon terminal membrane, and all those substances will be excreted out, will be eluted out through the process called exocytosis. Now the thing is that no neuron is in physical contact with this neuron. No two neurons, adjacent neurons, are in physical contact with each other. They form continuous network, but they are always apart by a distance. That distance, that space is called synaptic cleft. Synaptic cleft is nothing but a space between two adjacent neuron. This is the axon terminal, and this is the dendrite of then another neuron. So once the axon terminal of one neuron and the dendrite of another neuron are connected with each other through a space, through a gap, through a physical gap, and that gap is referred as synaptic cleft. Now what will happen, that the substances, these substances which are called as neurotransmitter, these substances are excreted out, eluted out from the axon terminal into the synaptic cleft. These substances or these neurotransmitter, this substance is called neurotransmitter, specialized chemical. This specialized chemical or the neurotransmitter which is responsible for transmitting signal from one neuron to another neuron, from one cell to another cell, this will move into the synaptic cleft. Now the adjacent neuron, the another neuron which is present, which is having dendrites, that dendrite has a special kind of receptors. These receptors are specific to the neurotransmitters or the substances which are secreted by the cell which is connected with them through the synaptic cleft. Now what will happen, the substances which are secreted by this cell, in which we have learned the transmission, the action potential, how the action potential is generated in through this cell, the substance which we call as a neurotransmitter is removed. These eluted substances or the neurotransmitters will be received through receptors, through synaptic cleft. Are you getting? Now the neuron, the axon of the neuron which has axon terminal and excreting out those neurotransmitter or donating those neurotransmitter, this neuron is called as presynaptic neuron. Presynaptic neuron, or synaptic cleft, pre earlier, so presynaptic neuron, this is called presynaptic neuron. And the neuron whose dendrites are having the receptor to receive that neurotransmitter which is present below that presynaptic neuron is referred as a postsynaptic neuron. Post means the second one, the one which comes next. So the postsynaptic neuron is the neuron which receives the neurotransmitter, receives the substance through the specific receptors. So the substances or neurotransmitters which are released into the synaptic cleft will be picked up by the specific receptors present on postsynaptic neurons dendrite. Now the dendrites have received that neurotransmitters. It will move into the what it will do, the neurotransmitter once from the ligand receptor complex. This is neurotransmitter, it is also called as a ligand, and this is the receptor. Once it forms the ligand receptor complex, it has another phase which is embedded into the cytoplasm. This is called cytoplasmic phase. The cytoplasmic phase will be activated and it will initiate the cascade of reaction, and this cascade of reaction will lead to the impulse generation. And once the impulse is capable enough to trigger the threshold of sodium voltage gated channel, what will happen? The action potential will be generated, depolarization, then repolarization, then hyperpolarization. The overall action potential will be generated and it will move through the boosters, and again impulse will be will be carried out, conducted across the membrane of the postsynaptic neuron. And this postsynaptic neuron will, once the potential reaches to the axon terminal, it will become presynaptic neuron and will transmit that the neurotransmitter which it has to the and postsynaptic neuron which is present below this neuron, this presynaptic neuron. So this is how the process will continuously will move further. Now how it reach to the target area, to the target gland, or to the target muscles. For example, if we want to voluntarily, if I want to raise my hand, it is done through the conduction of nerve, and this conduction of nerves even do not take a second to conduct across the meters of membranes of the axon. So in a millisecond the nerve conduction is taken place. And since my hands have skeletal muscle, that skeletal muscles are connected with the neurons, with the motor neurons. That motor neurons, the last motor neuron which is having this axon terminal, the axon terminal and the motor neurons are connected through a junction called neuromuscular junction. And once it reaches, the impulse reaches to the last neuron which is connected with the neuromuscular junction, it will induces muscle to contract or to release, which will help my hand to rise up. So this is how the action in the muscle will be taken place. Just like in my skeletal muscle, which is a voluntary movement, there are certain involuntary movements which will be taken place through these neurons, through this nervous system, by this means only. But the junction which are present in between neurons and muscles will be different. Like between gland and neuron, there is a junction called a neuroeffector junction. So the last neuron which is connected with the glandular cell, which are connected through the neuroeffector junction, that will induce the glandular cell to secrete hormones. So in this process is involuntary, and the skeletal movement is the voluntary process. So this is how the impulse will be terminated. So the impulse generation and transmission we have learnt in the 5 stages, in the 5 steps. The first one is the generation of impulse through external and internal stimuli, and we already have seen that how the impulse is generated and what does it require to be capable to induce the impulse. So the first is the generation of impulse. The second one is the transmission of first one is the sensation or indication of detection of the stimuli, external or internal stimuli. The second one is the generation of impulse. The third one is the transmission of a nerve impulse within a cell through action potential and its boosters. Fourth one is the transmission of nerve impulse from one neuron to another neuron, from one neuron to another cell. This is the fourth step, and the fifth stage is the termination of nerve impulse. So the first one is the detection or the sensation of nerve impulse, which can be detected by many receptors present in our body. Like there are chemoreceptors present in our tongue. Whenever we eat some food, that food contains chemical, that chemical is detected by that chemoreceptor, and that chemoreceptor is attached with the sensory nerves, and that sensory nerve will bring the information to the brain, and according to that the brain will process the signal and induce a processed impulse into the stomach, where stretch receptors are present, and it will give the signal to the stomach to release the pepsinogen or HCl, to increase the pH of pH of stomach, because we are eating food, and this is how overall the mechanism looks like. So here this was about chemoreceptor. Just like chemoreceptor, thermoreceptor, which we have already taken the example of, another one is the baroreceptor, which detects or senses the pressure of external environment. Just like that, many other hydroreceptors are also present in our body, which senses. Apart from receptors, some specialized organs are also there, some special organs like sensory organs like eyes, ears. So these organs can also sense the stimulus and give signals to the sensory nerves, which will again give signal to the brain, and the process signal will be given to the motor neurons. So the specialized sensory organs, sensory tissues, sensory cells, sensory neurons, through all of these parts of the nervous system, the stimulus will be generated, stimulus will be sensed, detected, and once stimulus is detected, then impulse will be generated. It depends on the capability or the intensity of the stimulus. Once the impulse is generated, it will be transmitted within a neuron, or within a axon, through the formation of action potential and its boosters. And once it reaches to the axon terminal, the transmission of nerve impulse from one cell to another cell, from one neuron to another cell or another neuron, will be taken place through synaptic firing, through synaptic action. Now sometime it may be happen, it is possible, because there are some cases that when neurotransmitters are not involved in transmission of nerve impulse from one neuron to another neuron. You will say, how is it possible? See, one neuron which is having axon, and the axon is having impulse. The impulse is conducted across the axon. It reaches to the axon terminal. There it will not induce any kind of exocytosis or any kind of neurotransmitter extrusion, neurotransmitter exocytosis. There the impulse electric impulse, the impulse which has been transmitting across the neuron in a presynaptic neuron, will directly be transmitted into the postsynaptic cell. So here no neurotransmitter will be involved. Direct transmission of nerve impulse, the direct transmission of that impulse, electric impulse, which has been generated and moving across the axon, will be directly transmitted to the dendrites of the postsynaptic cell. Here no neurotransmitters are involved, and this phenomena has been noted many times in many vertebrates. Most of the time the transmission of nerve impulse is taken place from one neuron to another neuron by neurotransmitters, but sometime electrical direct transmission can occur, and it will not involve any neurotransmitters. So this neurotransmitter involvement is called chemical synaptic transmission. And when direct nerve impulse transmission occur, that phenomena is called chemical synaptic transmission. So and at the fifth step we have seen the termination, how the potential how that electric impulse is terminated and how it reaches to the target area, and how does the target area react to that particular impulse. So this is how we have learned those nerve impulse transmission in a stepwise manner, because I thought that if I'll explain you in a continuous fashion, you will not be able to understand, you will mix all those things. So I divided into steps, but it should be noted that it is continuous process. So in this in this all nervous system chapter, what we have learned, we learned the overview of nervous system, the components of the nervous system, CNS central nervous system, PNS peripheral nervous system, the types of the peripheral nervous system, which is parasympathetic, sympathetic, and gastrointestinal peripheral nervous system. We studied about different types of nerve fibers and their pathways. We also learned the anatomy and physiology of neuron. We looked at the types of or classification of glial cells and their functions, and also that nerve transmission through various steps and through axon. We also looked at the action potential generation, as well as we learned that how the synaptic firing occur. So we learned the whole mechanism of nerve impulse transmission. I hope you have got the concept. If you have got the concept, then please support me by subscribing my channel and share the channel's link with your friends. Thank you.